Welcome back.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Chuck Nasty on Fantasy Football. Today, we're going over some of the offseason changes in the NFC North as it relates to the Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay Packers, and Detroit Lions. If you guys have any questions or anything on any of the content that's being provided in the stream, make sure you leave them below. I always try to get back to everybody and help answer any roster questions or specific player questions they might have. As you might have noticed, we've got some of the Chuck Nasty apparel on. I will also be leaving a link to the Chuck Nasty at Tier 1 Threads partnership below, where you guys can go into the store, order a hoodie, a beanie, a snapback, whatever your flavor is. Make sure you're using code ChuckNastyFam on checkout for a discount. So we're going to start with the Chicago Bears. The major offseason changes for them are they traded Jordan Howard over to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they drafted David Montgomery from Iowa State. If you guys have been watching the preseason at all, you're not going to see a ton of David Montgomery, but he is probably one of the most elusive backs that is out there. He's fast, and he's really good at breaking tackles. He broke over 100 tackles in college and has great receiving skills. So the Chicago Bears and Matt Nagy have said that they are in love with him, and they plan on using him. I'm not as concerned about the addition of Mike Davis from Seattle this year. I really think that David Montgomery runs away with the job. And then Tariq Cohen, you look at how he played last year. He's a primary receiving running back, and he's kind of one of these scat backs. But the difference of him between most scat backs is that 38% of the time last year he was lining up not in the backfield. So he was lining up as a receiver, and they're doing different things with him. So I really don't think that he's going to take away from David Montgomery's value. And ultimately, you look at David Montgomery's college transcripts, he averaged over 1,300 plus yards from scrimmage his last 2 years. And I have this gut feeling that he's going to have this breakout season if the Bears are any good this year. Also wanted to cover the tight end, Trey Burton. So he was the 8th tight end last year, and he just really had not a good year. There's a ton of upside with him. He was on pace for 57 receptions, 618 yards, and 7 touchdowns when Trubisky played last year. He's 27 years old, and it is his second year as a tight end in Matt Nagy's system. He's kind of one of those middle to late round targets if you're not able to get any of the top 3 guys, or Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, or even O.J. Howard in that middle range, and you end up waiting a bit. He's not a bad option in PPR formats at all. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. This is probably one of the most interesting situations for me, and I might be reading too far into it, paralysis by analysis type deal, but Mike Zimmer replaced the offensive coordinator, John DeFilippo, at the beginning of the season, middle of the season. DeFilippo was the OC to start the season. Very pass-heavy guy. He's currently down in Jacksonville, and I'm really interested to see how he impacts Nick Foles in that offense. I discussed this a little bit in a prior YouTube video on stats to know, but once he fired John DeFilippo, he brought in an offensive coordinator named Kevin Stefanski because he felt like DeFilippo was not running the ball enough. The pace of play under Stefanski, as opposed to DeFilippo, slowed by 6.4 plays per game. So they're basically utilizing less plays. They're running the ball more because it was closer to an even run-pass split. They're still using guys like Thielen. They're still using Diggs and everything like that, but there's a significant decrease in the workload in the passing game. So in the first part of 2018, they were 4th in the number of pass plays that were called by DeFilippo. 64.41% pass plays in all of 2018 under DeFilippo. In the last 3 games under Stefanski, they were at a 52.02% pass play call. So me personally, I don't own any shares of Adam Thielen right now. I'm not drafting Kirk Cousins, and I don't own any of Stephon Diggs. It might be a little bit in relation to where I'm drafting. I have a lot of the early round picks in drafts, and I'm just not able to get them on that 2-3 turn. but I'm really not targeting these guys either. If Thielen drops into the 4th round for some reason and I end up coming back with a 2nd overall pick in a 12 team and I'm picking again at like 26, maybe I would potentially grab him at that point, but it's just really difficult for me seeing what the production has done in the pass game under the new offensive coordinator. I'm really expecting Dalvin Cook to have a massive year this year under Stefanski. If you watch their preseason games at all, he broke off for a massive touchdown run. I know it's preseason. I know he's not up against the number one number one defensive players all the time, but you still have to be mindful of kind of like the eye test. Does he look good or does he not? So I wouldn't be surprised this year if, and this is a bit of a bold prediction, but if Dalvin Cook put up 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns this year, making him one of the top running backs in the league. It is a bold prediction, but he has to stay healthy in order to do it. But I'm drafting a ton of Dalvin Cook when I can get him. Moving on to the Green Bay Packers. Their backfield hasn't really changed very much. The biggest thing for them was a coaching change. They brought over Matt LaFleur from Tennessee, and it looks like the offense is going to be a bit different than it has been under McCarthy in the past. I really feel like Aaron Jones is going to have a much better year this year than he has in the past, with him taking the primary lead back role and Jamal Williams taking that change of pace role. Williams has always been a better pass blocker, but Aaron Jones has made a conscious improvement to work on his pass blocking in the offseason. He's currently going in that 3rd, 4th round. I have absolutely no problem taking him there. I think that he, especially in PPR formats, he's just an explosive runner. He gets chunks of yards per carry. He just needs to stay out of trouble, specifically. No more getting pulled over, in the car with any sort of paraphernalia in the car, if you know what I mean. And ultimately staying healthy as well. He had a bit of a hamstring earlier, a month or so ago. Supposedly he's going to come into the regular season at 100%, and I have no problem drafting him there. He's averaged 5.5 yards per carry over the past 2 years when he's had good-sized workloads. You break into the receivers then after that, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So Davante Adams is a clear-cut number, top 3, top 5 wide receiver. He's pretty much never making it past pick 8 or 9 in a lot of these redraft leagues. But the real question comes from the value of the number 2 wide receiver in the Packers offense. Aaron Rodgers loves to throw the ball. He's extremely accurate, and whoever he has playing behind Davante Adams is going to have a pretty good value. So we're kind of playing roulette a little bit, trying to figure out who it's going to be. And, lucky for us, there's a bit of clarity in that Equanimeous St. Brown was injured and is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks is what it looks like. But you have 2 primary targets behind him. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or MVS, who's currently the 44th receiver off the board in the 10th or 11th round. And then you have Geronimo Allison, who is the wide receiver 46, 2 wide receivers behind MVS in the 12th round. So before the injury in the past last year, Allison was on pace for a 76 catch, 1,156 8 touchdown pace for the full season last year. Those are crazy good numbers. Either of the 2 of these guys are going to be a significant value if you can pick which one it's going to be that is going to be that wide receiver 2. Personally, my money's on MVS, but we're going to have to see some regular season games to be able to determine that. They also run 3 wide receiver sets a ton of the time. I'm not sure how much that's going to change under Matt LaFleur. It might be totally different. They might do it a lot less. But whoever gets that number 2 spot could be startable in PPR formats. Moving on to the Detroit Lions. You have Kenny Golladay, who is currently a 3rd or 4th round average draft pick, and he finished with 7.9 targets per game, kind of a volume play there. And he even had 13-plus targets in some games towards the end of last season. The primary reason for that was Golden Tate was traded to the New York Giants. Marvin Jones got injured, leaving Kenny Golladay as like the primary target there. Now, they did add a tight end in TJ Hawkinson this year. Rookie tight ends tend not to perform very well their first year. He's not being drafted in a lot of leagues for good reason. In Dynasty, it might be a little different. You might have to hold on to him for a year or 2 to be able to kind of get your eyes on some of that breakout talent that he has. But you need to remember that in games when Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay played together, Marvin Jones actually out-targeted Kenny Golladay every single game. This isn't a joke, and it's not really, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that Marvin Jones might get the number 2 corner in a couple of those games. But you look back a couple of years, and Marvin Jones had some significant seasons in 2016 where, he's this jump ball guy, this big body receiver that's a very good route runner. So me personally, I'm not drafting any Kenny Golladay in that 3rd, 4th round. Even in PPR formats, it's too rich for my blood. I would much rather wait until the 7th or 8th round to be able to get that return value on Marvin Jones, pending he's able to stay healthy. Currently, Marvin Jones is going off the board at the wide receiver 36th or the 9th overall pick. So you can even get him in the early 9th round in a lot of these leagues. If you go running back heavy, he's a great target for your team late. In addition to that, you have Kerryon Johnson, who's being drafted pretty high. My only concern with Kerryon, he's clearly a very talented back. He's got the workload. They traded for C.J. Anderson, and they most recently just cut Zach Zenner. So, they're confident in the guys that they have there. That's great. You love to see it. But the problem is the Detroit Lions aren't that good. Now, under Matt Patricia, they're going to be running the ball a lot more. I mean, it's pretty common for defensive-minded coaches to want to run the ball more, to control kind of the script of the game, and I don't see them doing anything other than doing that. They're going to run the ball more than they're going to throw. The only problem is Kerryon going to be put in positions where he actually is able to get red zone carries? I'm not sure that the answer to that is yes. So he's going to be a very volume dependent play. I'm not sure that he's going to get a ton of touchdowns this year. I hope he does. He's being drafted by a lot of my friends in these leagues, and all I want for this channel is to help you guys do well in your leagues. I'm personally not getting a whole lot of him this year, but he definitely has a pretty high-end RB1 upside if he can get going and if the Lions can actually be a productive team on offense this year. The only problem besides the Detroit Lions is the fact that C.J. Anderson is now there and could potentially be dipping into his workload. It might end up being something where Kerryon Johnson ends up with 13 to 15 carries per game, and C.J. Anderson gets 6 to 10. CJ ran really well last year for the Rams through the playoffs, and I would be surprised if they didn't end up utilizing him at least a little bit this year. So me personally, not drafting Kerryon. Doesn't mean you shouldn't. It just really depends on kind of the structure of your team. So if you got any questions, make sure you leave them in the comment below. We're going to be doing the NFC East next, and we will see you there. Thanks for watching.
The most important thing in life will always be the people in this room. Right here, right now. Salute me, familia.